Thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I am your host, Nathan, and
Daimon.
today we're going to go ahead and give our thoughts and overview of the draft results as we eagerly anticipated for. And we're going to just kind of start off by giving our overall thoughts about the overall draft, and then we'll kind of give some stuff about our teams here. What are things that stood out for you?
A couple things, we had talked about it in our pre-draft stuff. The draft was so deep, so there were guys going third, fourth, fifth round that was like, man, I'd love to have that kid on my team. Even some undrafted free agents that I would have loved to have on my team, which I suppose was very predictable because of how deep we said the draft was.
Sure.
I think the overall, that also made it so that it was hard for teams to screw up almost. Like I think in a typical year, we look at two or three teams and we go, what were they thinking?
What were they thinking?
And this year, I think it's hard to find that. I think everybody had at least a solid draft, and there were probably more great drafts than I'm used to. Usually there's one or two great drafts, and I think there was 4 or 5 like really outstanding drafts this year. So I think the overall depth of the talent made it fun to watch. I think that even the guys that were falling and like it was like, oh, this guy fell. We expected him to do better. It was like, he kind of fell, but he didn't fall behind people that were necessarily worse than him.
I think there were a couple that definitely surprised me, but
maybe some surprises, but nothing that was like, a lot like when Randy Moss was clearly the best offensive player in the draft and fell to 19, or Warren Sapp was like a dominant force and people were being drafted ahead of him that you knew weren't even close to as good as him. Like, there was none of that, I don't think, this year.
Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
One
more thought, though. I will just say this. The quarterback thing surprised me, not because they fell, because I think they should have fell talent-wise,
right.
but because collectively the NFL had restraint at the quarterback position.
I was actually just about to say.
Sorry.
Is that I felt like, to me, that was one of the most impressive things is that you always see these guys just overreaching for certain positions, especially the quarterback position. And agreed, I felt like there were so many people that held restraint and didn't go after that player that would have been questionable going forward, and instead got themselves something to help their team out going forward. So.
And then when they were picked in like the third and fourth round, it was by teams that made sense.
Sure.
And it was at a place where it's like, okay, now it's worth
guy. The value was actually there for them.
Right, as opposed to reaching in the first round on some of those guys. So I thought that was one of the bigger storylines just because we never see it.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I was actually really impressed. There were so many times where I'm like, okay, now this is the place where this team historically does something really stupid, and then it's like, no, you did something right.
Yeah.
So give me a thought on what are some of the teams or a team that you think highlighted in the draft just had a really knockout draft.
I'm going to start with Seattle. Just shout out to Uncle Tom.
Shout out Uncle Tom.
I've already talked to him about how I felt about his draft. I thought, we had talked before the draft, me and Uncle Tom, about he wanted Russell Wilson traded. He was ready for a rebuild. He wanted some young guys to get excited about and to feel like they were heading in a different direction than that same old Russell Wilson-led team that was getting them
nowhere fast.
Yeah, just miss the playoffs or just make it and get bounced kind of team, which as a Bears fan, that's 80% of the teams that I've rooted for over my lifetime. So I understood completely. So for them to rebuild, the way they did it, they got a pair of phenomenal tackles, a left tackle and a right tackle, so you got your future at tackle set.
Loved that, by the way.
They got, those
49ers did that under Singletary, and I thought it was beautiful when they did it. That's same kind of thing, man. You go out and you get yourself 2 really good linemen there. Oh, it's fantastic.
And then they got Kenneth Walker, who, as you know, I'm a huge fan of from watching him at Michigan State and my fantasy college team. He was a beast. They got 2 of my favorite corners in this draft, Kobe Bryant, and then Tyreek Woolen from UTSA. Those are guys I thought should go second, third round, like late second, third, early third is where I thought they were going to go, and they got them late fourth and fifth. I mean, those are great. So that's the pair of corners now that they have. In my mind, those guys will end up being starters. System fits, and we know Seattle when they were at their best is when their secondary was tight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they got Bo Melton, who was one of my favorite receivers in the draft. I mean, you add Bo Melton in the slot with Lockett and DJ Metcalf on the outside.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, golly, you talk about. I mean, that's for a young rebuilding team. That's a heck of a lot of talent. To me, that's a real quick rebuild. Like a real quick rebuild. I think in a year or two, they could be back to being competitive once they figure out the quarterback. And I like that they didn't reach on a quarterback. They let Drew Lock. They're going to give Drew Lock a chance to prove it or not. And if he can't play, then they'll be in a position to draft a guy next year where they have 2 draft picks. They can move up and get the best quarterback in the draft probably next year. So I think they really set themselves up to succeed. I really like their draft. So.
Yeah, it's one of the teams that stands out to me as a team that I thought might go in a direction where they reached on a quarterback, and they didn't. They showed restraint, and I really like, especially as you name off the players that go to them, such good decision making in this draft, and it began with those linemen, and I felt like, man, you guys really resisted the urge to do something stupid here, so. Good job on the Seahawks. Again, I agree. That was a great draft.
Yeah, like the 2 second picks, the 2 second rounders and the 3rd rounder, right? You're just like, oh, this is where they go for Malik Willis. Oh, this is where they go for Malik Willis.
Yes.
Oh, this is where, and no, it was really good player, really good player.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh wow,
improve the team.
Wow, so maybe
and like
they
you
believe
said,
in Locke.
and even if they don't believe in Locke, I don't think it's a bad strategy anyways. You know what I mean? You invest in some future, and then you come back later and you get yourself a quarterback in a much deeper draft. I don't believe in Locke, and I doubt that they do.
Well, the other rumor out there too is that they're playing chicken with the Browns, and they're hoping. Yeah, there's a rumor out there
that I see.
They're hoping for Baker to get cut, then they'll sign him.
I see. I mean, and then they got
and
Geno Smith too.
If you're Baker, you gotta like if he does get cut and he can pick a team.
Yes.
A lot of weapons on that team.
Yeah, they made it a lot more attractive on that team. Yeah, and they'll protect him.
Yeah.
It's for me, I felt like the top team that I thought did a really good job was the Jets. The Jets were. Man, they made such good decisions, and they got so many players that I liked, so many players that you liked, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, man, they just kept nailing, and to get Jermaine Johnson, is that his name? I mean,
Jermaine Johnson.
To get Jermaine Johnson at
sack master.
Like, you know.
Look, I watched this kid come into Florida State from Georgia, and it was like, let's hope he can help Florida State be a better defense. And he was really the only thing about it. Like, he was the only thing to watch on Saturdays this year. It was so. The only fun thing about watching Florida State this year was watching him tear up offensive linemen. I think he has a huge future with the Jets.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that was one I was very jealous of when they picked him. Going, man, that's a stud. But hey, yeah, Breece Hall in the 2nd round. Breece Hall's a fantastic running back. And then like you said, Sauce Gardner. Best corner in the draft, and Wilson might be the best wide receiver in the draft. So
I mean, you know,
I think you think about the Jets. So good. like the Jets is one of those teams that we're used to kind of making fun of after the draft.
Sure.
We're used to being like, what were they thinking? They got maybe the best wide receiver, maybe the best corner, maybe the best running back, and a phenomenal pass rusher. All in one draft. That's like 3 years worth of drafts for the Jets normally.
Well, I'll tell you this. It really is going to say a lot about where Zach Wilson is, and I think that's something that we'll just have to see. He did struggle a little bit this year, but man, to give him the team around him, he should be able to start taking those steps to show that he's a good quarterback. So I thought it was a fantastic draft. I thought everything they did was just right on.
I agree.
Who else you got on there that impressed?
Okay, I hate to say it. Really hate to say it. I loved what Green Bay did. Yeah. I loved there are so many players on Green Bay that I thought were good. And we were kind of joking amongst ourselves when they went with those 2 first-round picks. When
linebacker?
Georgia linebacker, Georgia defensive tackle.
Which, I mean...
And it was like,
amazing.
But no, I mean those guys are fantastic. And honestly, those guys, neither one of them were those guys were steals where they got them.
I think so too.
But it was like, oh, here they go working on the defense and ignoring Aaron Rodgers, and then they get Christian Watson. Love the dude.
Yeah.
So much upside.
Yeah, so much.
Sean Ryan, a lineman that I would have preferred us get. Like Romeo Dubs, another
so
fantastic
good.
wide receiver. Zach Tom, another lineman that was on my list of guys I'd like to see the Bears get.
Really good.
Um,
Yeah, that is a good draft, man.
I mean, it's just like, and you know, the far end stuff is what it is. I don't know those guys as much. Even Rasheed Walker. I mean, they got 3 linemen that they can either have depth at that position or compete for starting roles in that position. 2 wide receivers that I think are phenomenal to match with the guys they got in free agency to replace what they lost. I thought that was a home run draft.
Yeah, I think this is one of the first in a long time where I could look at it and go like, man, Aaron Rodgers would be happy with what they got. So,
yeah, he might have been. He might not have been happy after day one when they used those 2 first picks for defense. But I thought that those were BPA guys,
sure.
and it will help their defense. And hey,
you can't win championships with just offense.
You got to have a defense also. And then
Maybe
what they did
NFC,
after that to help Rodgers. Well, yeah, to help Rodgers on offense, I thought was phenomenal. Like I hate it that they did so well. I like it when he's pissed off because they did stupid things. But I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from your perspective, I could see you hating the draft.
I hated it. I hated it because I liked it so much.
And you know what? Just off topic, I hated the fact that the Jaguars got who is my favorite player in the draft with Lloyd, Devin Lloyd.
Yeah.
I kept seeing the guy fall, and again, like you said, I mean, it's not like huge falls, but it is a little like I thought that player was damn good. He was so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
I heard him comp to Darius Leonard, and I think that's absolutely what you're looking for is somebody like that. And he was all over the field. I loved him as a player. So I hate the fact that Jacksonville.
And they didn't make my group of like excellent teams, but they weren't far off.
Draft.
Like they were a very solid draft team.
They did.
Very good.
Yeah. Kansas City also was another team that had a really, really good draft.
The rich get richer.
Yeah, the rich get richer.
The rich get richer.
Did the league really need them to have a good draft? They have like 19 picks in the first like 2 rounds or something like that. Like,
well,
they might be a little off.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's interesting, right? This is the year where great GMing. Okay, this is the year where it's like, oh, that Mahomes contract's going to hurt them now because now they can't keep everybody fed. Right? So what do? They trade, they let Honey Badger walk because they can't afford him. They trade Tyreek Hill to get a bunch of picks. They make a couple other cuts that hurt, and then they replace them all with a bunch of really good guys in the draft.
Yeah. Where
mixed with the veterans that they have, the machine will just keep on rolling.
Agreed. And see, that's I think the key. I think that is the key. There is, like you said, mixed with the veterans that they have on the team, it is going to definitely work. You know what I mean? Like you just feel that.
Yeah, this one was stupid, honestly. Like when we talked about guys that I liked, so I wasn't really looking at the first round guys. So guys like McDuffie and the Purdue kid.
I think McDuffie was great.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look at them that hard, but they look good. The
George
Purdue,
Goffadopoulos.
Yeah, the Purdue kid.
Hey, look.
He's boiler up. That's what we call him.
Both of those are great players, man. Both of them.
Yeah, but I wasn't like I had no illusions that the Bears would get them, so I didn't care about them.
Sure.
But Sky Moore, I would have absolutely loved to have him on the Bears. Brian Cook and Leo Chenal were 2 of my favorite defensive players in the hitters that just punish people. And Spags is going to love those guys.
He's from Cincinnati. I loved him.
The corner from Fayetteville State, Joshua Williams, another guy that I really loved when I was looking at like corners that maybe we could try to get later. 4th, 5th round. So they get him right about where I thought they should, late 4th round, and he's a phenomenal player. So yeah, when you add all those guys to what they already have, it's just sick. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean that's.
Man, yeah, like you said, the rich get richer, man. But hey, you know what? They got a tough division to compete in, so they got.
I mean, the rich get richer because there's a lot of rich over there right now. That's what they had to get richer.
That's the wealthy.
They had to keep up with the Joneses of the West. I mean, golly.
Some other thoughts on it. I really liked what the Falcons did. They didn't make it up there, but they had a lot of players that I actually really, really liked. And them getting the quarterback that I like, where they got him to. And really, I think Ritter is Marcus Mariota, maybe a better version of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be great as a mentor. Marcus Mariota is one of these guys that you know, he will be a good mentor. He's not going to have a chip on his shoulder because they went and drafted some guy. He's going to be like, let's get him going, just because that's how he is. So I thought that he landed in a really good position, and I did like Ritter a lot. So I thought that was fantastic. And there was a couple other moves that they made, a couple other players that they got, where I was just like, wow, man, like.
So I had one more team that I put.
Oh, they got. I'm sorry, they got from USC. What is his name?
Drake London.
Drake London, who I thought was a phenomenal wide receiver.
Yeah, to replace Ridley, who has to take a year suspension. Maybe an upgrade. Who knows? Maybe Ridley won't have a place to come back to after that year suspension.
Or if he comes back and they compare up the two. But you're right, maybe.
Maybe they go
buy Ridley.
Have fun. No, so I had one more team that I had in that elite, that like just extraordinary draft, like, which was Baltimore.
Oh yeah.
Which we had joked about. They have all those 4th round picks. So they're going to have a lot of ammo in a deep draft, so they probably will do good. But even with that said, I mean,
Kyle
Hamilton,
great player.
And then they lost their longtime center, moved on this year, so they replaced him with Tyler Lindenbaum from Iowa, which is, people are saying, the best center in the last 10 years.
Sure.
Center prospect in the last 10 years. So that's phenomenal. Then they got a Jobu who slipped because of an injury, but the defensive coordinator was the defensive coordinator at Michigan. The head coach is the brother of the head coach at Michigan. If anybody's going to know or be able to feel good about this kid's ability to come back and bounce back and all that and work hard to do what he has to do to get back, these guys are going to know whether he has that in him or not. And to get him in the second round, I mean, this guy was mock draft top 10
it was late
before his injury.
Too, wasn't it?
It was 13th pick, so middle.
Yeah, okay.
Middle.
Okay,
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, a phenomenal player.
Then in the 3rd round, they got the guy that I wanted but didn't even think he would get to us with our first 2nd round pick, Travis Jones. I love this kid.
Oh, you're raving about him.
I love this kid. Then and then we talked about they get the Mountain from Minnesota, the 6'8", 280 pound or 380 pound monster.
And you love how all these players just scream Ravens players too.
Like that guy. I mean, so the thing on him is he struggles in pass coverage, but he just destroys people in running. Okay, so he goes to the team that runs more than anybody else in the league.
Sure,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Charlie Kolar is a very solid tight end, Absolutely. And then they get Isaiah Likely, who is a developing tight end. So you get a couple of tight ends. Maybe you get rid of the wide receivers that can't that can't go downfield, that your quarterback can't get the ball to anyway, and you bring in tight ends that can find holes in the zones when your guy's scrambling around like a mad fool, and maybe that's better for your offense.
I mean, you know what? It does seem to work better for that kind of offense. So
yeah,
I totally agree.
I think like they did, and then they get Tyler Batty in the 6th round, who a lot of people said might be, this gem of this draft at running back, because he wasn't getting a lot of pub, but he just got it done at Missouri.
Yeah,
kind of a jack of all trades to add to their running back group, and I mean that to me. They checked a lot of good boxes off with that draft. A lot of good players. So yeah, I mean, I think that was a phenomenal draft. That for a team that was maybe backslid, maybe disappointed a little bit last year, maybe starting to get a little long in the tooth, and now they can bring in some young guys to kind of replace some of that long in the tooth and get back to being the Ravens that we're used to, that makes the playoffs every year. After a hiatus for a year.
I mean, it was a damn good draft.
Yeah, I thought so.
And like I said, I think that those players definitely fit Baltimore. Like it was just, it was a hell of a draft. Yeah. So what else stood out for you in the draft? Anything surprising? Any players slip that you thought, or anything like that?
I mean, we talked about Jermaine Johnson slipping. We talked about here's what I thought was interesting. I feel like the combine hype slipped in the draft. That's time and time again when they talked about guys slipping in the draft, it was like, well, these are guys that you guys got hyped up about after the combine. Maybe they didn't slip in the draft. Maybe they just stayed where they were, and the scouts weren't buying the hype this year as much as they had in the previous years. Because I think that stood out to me more than anything. Most of the guys that slipped were guys like
combine hype.
Yeah, like Sky Moore slipped a bit from where people thought he was. But he was just where he was before the combine.
I mean, that one didn't surprise me at all. I mean, I had him going to us around the same time frame. You know what I mean?
Well, so like the two that we've talked about in this, Jermaine Johnson slipping. Well, he was originally late first, early second. Yeah. Then he had this hype that took him all the way up into the top 10, but then he ends up late first. Yeah. Travis Jones, originally third, fourth round grade. After the combine, this hype takes him to where he might even be a first rounder. He gets drafted in the third round. Yeah. So I think there was a lot of those guys that the combine hype about, didn't sustain itself to the actual draft. And so some of the guys that, even the quarterbacks, like all of a sudden Willis like shoots up the draft boards, right? But then he doesn't end up getting drafted in the first round because he gets drafted where everybody thought he would before the combine.
Yeah, well, and like on that matter, I really hope that he is that kind of player that wasn't worth taking that high up. Because if he ends up being worth it, he went to Tennessee, and I'm not really happy about that. So,
I mean, I think that's a great pickup for Tennessee because you can kind of see where maybe Tannehill's not the answer.
Yeah.
You're going to give him another year or two. And that gives you time to develop. I thought that was just a really smart pickup by Tennessee.
I thought it was smart, especially where it was.
If it could end up being a really good spot for him.
But if he ends up being a good quarterback, I'm not going to be happy about it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope that he's exactly what they think.
To me, I think he's very Russell Wilson-like, where it's going to depend on what's around him,
I suppose,
and how he's coached, and that will determine how good he is. And yeah, but I think other than that, like things that stood out, just what we talked about at the top, it was just surprising that there weren't. It's surprising that there weren't as much that stood out as normal. Like there weren't like the bad choices and
quite a bit of trading.
The trading was insane.
Yeah,
the trading was insane throughout the draft.
But it was a good draft for people to do that. I thought our trade worked out for us pretty well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a whole bunch, but it did add a player. So.
Yeah. When it comes to the trading, I'm kind of saving that for when I talk about my team.
Okay.
Because that was.
Well, you know what? What a perfect time for us to go ahead and get into that, Damon. Why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts on your team and what they did different.
Right. So, look, I mean, in my pre-draft thing, I was like, I hope we trade back with those 2 second-round picks, trade back, pick up a bunch of 4th and 5th, because I thought there was a ton of value in the 4th and 5th. They elected to use the 2nd-round picks where they were. Not necessarily on guys that I had tabbed, but guys that I liked. I liked what we did, those first 2 picks. I didn't expect either one of those guys to get out of the first round. And so we solidified our secondary. I think we have now our 4 main secondary spots are locked for a while. And if Jackson fits this new system the way I think he will, they will be above average at all 4 positions. So that's great. I like a lot of Bears fans didn't like the fact that we didn't go wide receiver, we didn't go offensive line. There's, I had talked about before, I didn't think we had to because, at least with the wide receiver, because of the depth. I was obviously frustrated when you get Travis Jones. That frustrated me a bit. But I can't argue with the 2 that they picked. 3rd round, different story. We get the Tennessee wide receiver. There were at least 5 other wide receivers on the board at the time that I loved, that I would have rather taken. I think that was one of the few reaches in the draft where this guy could have been there in the 4th or 5th round, and we take him in the 3rd over guys much better than him.
Yeah, I did. I agree.
So that one kind of...
There must be something that they see in him.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I don't see it. They talked about in the press conference that that Poles and Fields actually watched wide receiver tape together to identify wide receivers that Fields thought would work well for him, and then this was one of the guys that he had identified.
Oh, well, I really hope that they're not letting Fields make their decisions.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, okay. Yeah, exactly. I mean, is he qualified as a scout? I don't know.
Anyways.
Yeah, that came out, and that's like, what are we talking about right now?
I really hope that sounds worse than it.
Yeah, I don't know if that was Poles trying to justify a pick that was unpopular or what, but that, yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that they do include the quarterback with it, but damn.
Yeah, no, that wasn't great. So then from there, then it's like, okay, well, we didn't get the extra picks that I was hoping for, but there are so many guys still on the board. So there's optimism.
Oh, man.
A lot of optimism. But then there's also a ton of picks. And then as soon as it gets to us, I'm like, oh. And then it's, there's a trade. 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 Another trade. And you're going like, What are we doing? But then it's like, oh, wait a second. No, there's still a ton of guys on the board that I like. And we just went from 3 day 3 picks to 8 day 3 picks. I love that. I love that. There's so many guys. But then he didn't pick any of those guys. So, I don't know. So that, yeah, I mean.
Are there any in the later rounds?
Okay, so yeah, let's go with, let's, if I'm being honest, Braxton Jones seems interesting. The first tackle that we got in the 5th round, he seems like a guy that has some very good upside. Fits the type of player that Poles likes. So I'm cautiously optimistic about him, even though he wasn't one of the guys that I checked off. Dominique Robinson was a guy that I looked at. He's the defensive end that we got. I think this could end up being like a really great pick because I think, I said I wasn't worried about defensive end in the draft because we have Quinn, we signed Muhammad, and we have Gibson. So that's the 3. Well, this kid, I think, is a guy that they look at. I guess he was a wide receiver as a freshman. Switched over. He's very little time at defensive end and still looked good.
He did look good.
So that's a kid that, maybe plays some special teams, maybe is a situational pass rusher,
He's quite athletic.
Fills in if there's an injury for the next couple of years. And then when Quinn has reached the point where it's time for us to let him go because he makes too much money for his age and for this value, now you got his replacement in-house.
With a lot more experience.
With experience and ready to go.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think that's a plan ahead kind of draft pick.
Sure.
Where you're getting some value and long term that's going to be a good pick. So that one I like. The rest of it is just, I don't know much about these guys. I feel like we're just throwing bodies at the offensive line.
Sure.
And saying, hey, if we draft 5 offensive linemen that we feel like fit the scheme, hopefully 2 of them work out. And that's probably what you're doing when you have that many picks. And then we got a punter. So, yeah, that's whatever. We needed a punter. Yeah. Our punter signed somewhere else for like $2.5 million. And we're not in a position as a team to pay $2.5 million to a punter. So a punter in the 7th round, all right, good. If he works out, fine. If not, who cares? No, it wasn't. Yeah, it filled. Hey, starter in the 7th round.
That's how can you argue?
Who can argue with the starter in the 7th round?
How can you argue that?
So yeah. So I guess in general, I liked the start. I liked the style that he showed by being willing to trade back and add extra picks. It backs up what he talked about. He's not lying when he talks about he values, building through the draft. He values scheme fit. He values speed and aggressiveness on both sides of the ball. All of that proves out to be true in his draft.
Absolutely.
I just was mad that, there were other guys that I just thought were really good. And then there's like, I talked to you about this morning. So there's like 20 undrafted free agents that I had us as like, I would love to see us draft these guys in the 5th or 6th round. There's like 20 of them, and we don't go for a single one. We did sign like 20 undrafted free agents. One guy I like. Sandberg from Wisconsin. I like him. He has some potential. At the least, should be a good special teams guy. Maybe he can be a backup linebacker. Maybe even in a year or 2, move up to a starting linebacker. I think he has some potential. I like him. The rest, whatever. If they turn out to be studs, then I'll just learn to trust our scouting department. But at the moment, I'm not happy with that part of it. I like what he did from the standpoint of he did what he said he would do. I don't like what he did as far as the names that were put next to those picks.
So overall, how good do you feel about it?
Hey, I said this in my other video. There's not going to be any good feelings this year because we're going to suck. But we need to suck.
Yeah.
We need to suck. He decided to rebuild. I do think the defense is going to be a lot better than people thought, even than I thought. I think the guys he added to both through free agency and the draft, we're going to have a good defense, which means that will keep games close and help Fields confident. Yeah, he's not going to be down like 21 points at the end of the first quarter very often, unless it's his own doing, like pick sixes, which is possible.
It is possible.
But he's not going to be down. He's not going to have that pressure of like, man, I got to get something done right now. I think he'll, so I think that's good for growth, and I think that's a smart way. You got a defensive coach, get a strong defense. They replaced all the old guys with young guys, and I think we got a defense that can be set up to be pretty darn good for the next 5 to 6 years without really having to do too much to it. And so then it's just work on the offense, and if Fields is the right guy, I imagine that'll get addressed next year. We have a ton of free agent money, and we'll probably have some better draft picks because I don't expect us to do too well. And and it's like that's not fun, but it's what's necessary. So I get it. So from that standpoint, I guess I'm okay with how it worked. I'm not excited, but there's very little we could have done to be excited.
Sure.
So I'm okay with what we did, and that's probably the best I could be at this point.
Sounds good.
So I pretty much already know how you feel, but let's take the viewers through it.
Okay, so obviously the Colts did not have a first round pick, but in the second, the first pick we got was Alec Pierce, wide receiver, Cincinnati. Look, I loved everything about Cincinnati last year.
Jealous.
Yeah, I loved Alec Pierce. I really did. I wasn't 100% sure if you go watch my video talking about, like, I didn't know if they were going to go for that big-bodied wide receiver. It is what we typically go for, or what they are looking at lately, at least. So I didn't know if they were going to go for that, but they did, and I was extremely happy because Alec Pierce, he honestly probably was my favorite wide receiver that we would have a realistic option of going and getting. Maybe Christian Watson, even though, like, obviously it didn't slip that far, but still. Alec Pierce is great. I love it. I'm very, very happy. I think he matches up very well with Michael Pittman, and it's going to give us some great targets to throw at, and I am super excited about that.
And I feel like Alec Pierce is the Matt Ryan type of wide receiver.
Oh, I love it.
Like he fits what Matt Ryan fits well with, at least early in his career. Maybe the arm strength's not as much as it used to be, but I think it probably still is for at least another year or two. And I think Alec Pierce fits that very well.
Very well. Yeah. So I'm extremely happy with that pick. Very, very happy. Yeah.
I would give up a lot if we could change the wide receivers that we drafted.
Yeah.
A lot.
And you knew I was very high on Alec Pierce. Right?
Oh, when that pick was made, it was like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful for him.
All right, so the next in round 3, number 73, we got Jelani Woods, tight end. And I got to be honest with you, he wasn't a person that I put on my list of prospects to watch. I had my eyes solely on really, what's his name?
Okay.
His name? No, it's Trey McBride.
McBride.
So, anyways, I had my eyes set on him, and then I kind of went a little past Jelani Woods to look for other values later on in the draft. So I didn't really necessarily look into him all that much. But since looking into him, I got to say, I'm actually very happy with the tight end that we got and the position that we got him at. I knew it was an important place. I had a feeling that they were going to go, with higher up in their draft picks to get one, and I'm glad that they did. I am excited about this. I think especially long term, I think this is going to end up being a great pick. Him with Molly Cox and Granson gives us a whole lot of athleticism there at tight end. I don't think the experience level I'd like to see necessarily, but at the same time, it's going to be, if they can utilize any kind of intelligent way of getting these guys the ball, man, it's going to be, they're athletic freaks. You know what I mean? They're all extremely athletic. So,
well, I think Woods in particular is in that, when you just talk about athleticism, he's in that Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, or the new group of Kelsey and Gronk, like those are the kind of numbers he put up in the combine. And I don't know, that worked out pretty well for I think Tony Gonzalez worked out pretty well for Matt Ryan early in his career.
He did all right.
Like those two found a way to make that work, that skill set work, right?
I'm extremely
happy. I mean, to me, I had him as the number 2 tight end easily, and I had him as one. I was much higher on him than you were pre-draft. And I think I even said when he got drafted, I was like, "You're gonna love this kid."
Yeah, and kind of looking into him a lot.
You're gonna love this kid.
I'm perfectly happy with him. So 6'7", I really appreciate that.
I'm gonna predict now in 2 years he has a jersey.
The problem is
there's too many in that category.
There's too many right now.
No, but when this kid comes out and starts catching touchdown passes left and right,
a Pittman jersey, which I gotta get. I mean, I don't know, man.
When this kid comes out and starts catching like 12 touchdowns a year,
oh man,
you're gonna end up with this jersey.
There's going to be some jerseys getting got here pretty soon. All right. Round number 3, number 77, Bernard Raymond. This was a guy, he's an awesome offensive line from Central Michigan, 6'7", 304 pounds, big dude. I liked this kid a lot. I I can't even remember if I put him into my video. If I didn't, he was the one that I took off. I know there was one that I had on my list. I don't know why I took him off. I was looking for somebody else there, but Bernard Raymond definitely stood out as a hell of an athlete, and he's going to be a very good offensive lineman for us, I think.
And I think scheme fit.
Scheme fit,
like
totally
your style,
scheme fit.
yeah,
Absolutely,
for sure.
absolutely. So I was really super excited about that pick, and like here I am in round 3. We got 3 picks in, and I am super excited about the draft that we had. So watching, I was so excited. At this point, I'm already.
Best moment of the draft watching with Nate Lowry. With Nate Lowry.
Yeah,
we're just chatting.
Yeah.
We think we're done for the night. You know, he's trying to figure out if he wants to wait till the end of the 3rd round to head home because it's getting late. There's only a few picks left. He's tired. He's feeling great. And up on the screen it scrolls Colts pick. Take over.
Round number 3, number 96, Nick Cross, safety from Maryland. It was extremely high on Nick Cross. If you watch my other video, that's who he was the second person, other than Trey McBride, he was the only person that I just adamantly wanted to add to our team. I think he fits perfectly with what Gus Bradley does, and I think it was just such a good fit, and they went and they picked him, and I loved it.
And that at that moment, the Nate Lowry joy for the draft went from exuberant to a rocket ship out of the atmosphere,
I was so excited,
heading towards the sun of like just elation, which I was both happy for him and jealous of.
Yeah, I was super excited, and like I just loved, especially the way that these first 2 rounds, or the second and the 3rd round, played out for us. At this point, when I left his house, I was super excited. So, yeah. Nick Cross, I think this guy is going to be a heck of a player for us, and I think, especially a couple years down the road, we are going to be extremely happy that we added him to our team. So.
Well, and I had him as like an early 2nd round pick.
He was,
and you guys get him at the end of the
3rd
round. Like that was.
I had him at 3. I just kind of saw the draft like we talked about being top heavy. You know what I mean? That some of these guys are going to slip down. But agreed. I think that he had the talent where some people were talking about him going as high as.
And it was funny because in our pre-draft thing, I was like, he got through my 3rd round, but probably only because I knew how much you wanted him, so I didn't want to ruin your day by having him drafted before you guys could get him. So then when they trade up to get him, I mean, we knew. Like, I even looked at him, and we looked at each other like, this has to be Nick Cross, right? Like, this is like kismet right now. When that popped up, it was just like, is it about to go down? It's about to go down. It's about to go down.
Yeah.
And then it did, and yeah.
I was super excited. Anyways, so then we go on to round number 5. No picks in round number 4. With Nick Cross, that's basically our pick, right? Because is that what?
Yeah, that you used your 4th rounder, and I think one of your. Did you have 2 5? I used something else.
We had 2 5s.
Yeah.
Anyways, so number 159 overall, Eric Johnson, defensive line, Missouri State, 6'5", 300 pounds. Okay, I got to be honest with you. I wasn't necessarily looking at defensive linemen. That wasn't an area of study for me. And he comes from Missouri State, which I got to be honest with you, I'm not too familiar with Missouri State.
Not watching a lot of Missouri State
on
Saturdays?
Not watching a lot of Missouri State. So what do you know about him?
Okay, so I did find this was one of my guys. There was 3 guys where I wanted a defensive tackle that could put pressure up the middle, because I feel like that's a key part of Eberflus. I can't get used to saying his name. Eberflus's defense, and so I thought there was a lot of guys we could get in the 2nd, but I wanted to have some backups in the 5th that I could talk about in the draft process. And he was one of the guys that I came across that looks like he's raw. He needs some seasoning, but he's explosive on that first jump. He's a strong guy that can shed people's arms off of him with his upper body strength and that explosion. So, to me, this is the DeForest Buckner protege, right? Where you let him learn from one of the best there is.
Yep.
Maybe a little rotation as DeForest is getting older and older and needs to wean back those snap counts. You kind of get this guy more and more.
He got that as a rotation. Yeah.
I think that's it. He can learn, he can grow, he can get stronger, and as he develops better and better technique, he can play more and more as Buckner plays less and less. And now you got your natural, turn it over to a key position in a defense where getting pressure up the middle allows those outside guys to So to me, I thought that was a great depth pick for you guys.
Sure.
That has depth at the right position. That once he develops like he needs to, he'll probably be ready to start because you guys will be ready to move on from Buckner at that point.
Well,
so I thought that was a great. I texted you like, "Oh, that's a good pick for you guys."
He texted me. I didn't know much about him. I would say I still haven't got a chance to look too much into him, but I would say that I'm going to trust our GM. I don't know much about him, but hey, whatever. I mean, here I'm already so satisfied with the draft that they could just. Whatever.
It's a 5th round pick, right?
Yeah, it's a 5th round pick. I mean,
that's the time where you swing and miss.
The needle, but hey,
you shoot for the home run. If you miss, then so what?
All right, round number 6, number 192, Andrew Ogletree, tight end, Youngstown State. Again, not too familiar with Youngstown State, but I mean he's obviously depth, and I guess
I didn't come across him at all, so I can't offer anything here.
Yeah, he's 6'5", 261, 28 receptions, 282 yards. So not mind blowing. I don't know, whatever.
Maybe he's the blocker.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he's the guy that you bring in.
I don't know much about him.
For goal line that can block, or when you go, short yardage, you want to have that extra tight end that can block.
I hope so because I still feel
that would be
like
a hole in your guys' tight end game. Yeah.
So we'll see how that all plays out. He might not even make the team. Who knows? So I mean, all right. Round 6, number 216, Curtis Brooks, who is a defensive lineman out of Cincinnati. He's from Cincinnati.
I think they actually said that the broadcast that I was watching. I think they actually said he was on the Cincinnati defense. He must be good.
He must be good.
I think that's what they said on the drafting. It's like
I do kind of feel that way.
Yeah.
Like I loved watching Cincinnati play last year. I was impressed by almost every single player that they had on the field. It was wonderful to watch, and so I am semi happy about this just because he's a Cincinnati guy. We got 2 of them. A lot more happy about the first, but still okay with the second one. I mean, he had 33 tackles, 12.5 for a loss, and 7.5 sacks, playing on a team that was loaded with talent. I mean, I like picking him up here in the 6th. I'm actually
7.5 sacks. Is that what you said?
7.5 sacks.
That was for last year, not for his career.
Oh, I can't verify that.
I mean, if that was for last year,
I wonder if
that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking. I'm like going to 6. You're right. Maybe it is for career. Maybe I looked that up wrong. It's probably stats. Okay. Round number 7, number 239. We got Rodney Thomas, the second cornerback out of Yale. He's 6'2", 200 pounds.
Smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, I
he went to Yale, right? He's got to be a smart guy.
I didn't keep up with Yale, but I have kind of looked into him a little bit, and I mean, obviously this isn't a guy that's going to blow your mind or something like that, but he made plays. He seemed like you said, he's intelligent. Like
the 2 things you know about him. He's smart and he loves football because he played scholarship free, which means he must love football.
There you go.
So I think those are 2 attributes that you can't teach.
This guy seems like a Colts player anyways. It just, you know what I mean? We do that. Yale, Stanford, you know what I mean?
Maybe he's like your future secondary coach. They just drafted him now for that purpose.
Whatever. I mean, and again, this is just depth anyways. You might need to make the team, whatever. But cool. I'm very happy. I was very satisfied with everything that happened in our draft. Extremely satisfied. So great. Good job, Colts. Go Colts.
So I would say this, you didn't have enough draft picks for me to put you in that excellent category with those other 5. There was just a lack of numbers.
Yeah, we don't have a first round pick anyways.
Right. But that, if you had 2 or 3 more picks that were in that really great or good category, then you're right there with those other 5 that we talked about at the top that had excellent drafts. More a matter of numbers than anything held you back.
I thought we did a really good job of picking players that fit what we needed.
Yeah,
and it fits our scheme.
And you're that close to that. You're 6th or 7th best draft to me. Those top 5 are ahead of you, but you're 6th or 7th best draft with a limited number of draft picks, no first rounder.
Yeah, I thought they made really good decisions of where they got, where they selected, and I felt like I really had a pulse on my team because they went a lot of directions that I thought they would go. So
I mean, here's the other thing I'll say too. We talked about during the free agent thing. When you got Matt Ryan, it was okay, this gets you in the conversation to compete, but that division or that conference is so loaded with
Yeah.
Buffalo and Kansas City and, well, everybody in the West. And, it was like, and Cincinnati.
Cleveland.
And Cleveland now with Watson. And with the draft that Baltimore had, Baltimore. Like, so it's like, man, how do you compete with those guys? But between what you guys did with free agency and what you did in the draft, I think you have to include you in that group.
I am actually
I don't know where you put in
I'm
that
seeing
group.
the pundits starting to change that as well. We didn't get a lot of respect last year, and obviously it ended up that we probably didn't deserve it. So, but like pundits are starting to change that and talk about us too. I think adding Matt Ryan to the system and doing what we did in the offseason prior to the draft, people are already talking about us. So,
And so I was just thinking, like, when you have like that defense that you had, like, you didn't really lose any key components of the defense.
And
then you added
Stephen Gilmore,
Gilmore, stud. You added the Yannick kid,
yeah.
like, great compliment to Kwity Paye. Like, you and then you add Nick Cross, like you said, safety that's going to upgrade your safety position. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
And then the guy that we didn't talk about, that I said I was going to talk about, and then we didn't, but now I'm glad that it brought it back in my mind. Undrafted free agent for the Colts. Colts fans, you're hearing it from a Bears fan, not him. Weatherford, okay, kid from Miami, Ohio, could be a corner, could be a free safety, could be a strong safety, could be a linebacker. He will be a special teams beast for the next 2 years as he works his way up to some kind of a starting role. He was one of my favorite defensive players that I looked at in the draft prep. I think this kid's got huge upside, and so you're adding your special teams. That's a special team.
You heard it from him.
You heard it from me.
We're gonna have to keep an eye on that.
You watch.
I hope he turns out to be good.
He'll be loving that. I'm gonna buy him that jersey for Christmas in 2 years once he's ready to start as one of those positions.
Jersey.
No, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna save up.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put every time he has a good play, I'll put $1 in a bucket, and once I have enough, then I'll buy you the jersey.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, I didn't talk about it. I'm glad that you brought that up. C.J. Verdell, the running back out of Oregon, which, as an Oregon Ducks fan, love the kid. I absolutely love the kid. Great person to get as a drafted free agent, in my opinion. Obviously, we got our starter down, but to add a third back like him, I think he's going to pan out, and I think it'll be very good. So, anyways, might not make the team, but
so I think in the end, to cap it all off, my draft and your draft, super jelly.
Yeah, I love
Tom's draft, super jelly.
Yeah. Good draft, Tom.
And yeah.
All right.
So business as usual in Chi-Town. No, actually, that's not true. Business is changing. He's doing the rebuild correctly. We've never had a GM do the rebuild correctly. I think he's doing it correctly.
You're going to be satisfied in the end.
I think hopefully
Just have some patience.
Hopefully he's a good talent evaluator, and they have good talent evaluators, and that even though I don't know these guys, they'll end up being good players.
And by the time we get our second Super Bowl, you guys will be pushing really hard to make the playoffs. So I just want you to just look forward to some stuff. Thank you for watching us, and give us a like, give us a subscribe if you got anything out of it. We look forward to seeing you again next time.
Hey, and if you want us to break down your team, we'll do that. Throw it in the comments. I'll find some time. I'll break it down. Throw it in the comments.
You'll find some time.
Subscribe. I'll find some time. I'll break down your team for you.
Find some time.
I'll tell you what I thought of your team's draft if we didn't already touch on it, because I thought there was a lot of good teams that made a lot of good choices. So that'd be fun to do if you want to comment, but you got to comment to get it.